Okay, so here I am. You cannot see me because unfortunately we don't have a webcam for this. But I wanted to make sure we were able to record with a mic. We were able to record the screen. Here is all 43 theatrical DreamWorks movies. And over here we have...
Hi, I'm Clay. I'm also here. I'm the guy that has been watching these movies with him. And I've wanted to kill him ever since we started.
You liked most of these movies. What are you talking about? Why are you lying for clout on the camera, Clay? Come on. Why you gotta be like this?
Anyways, so why don't we go ahead and just get started then? So the very first movie...
Before we actually do the movies, I think it's important to establish what every tier symbolizes. So it's not just this is A tier and then people have no context for that. I mean, generally we know that, if you give something an A, it's going to be good, and S is going to be better and such. But, what is the actual distinction between A and B and C, et cetera, et cetera?
Okay.
So, starting from the bottom. BOTFB. Bottom of the fucking barrel. As I have said multiple times on the channel, for me, there are 3 requirements for a bottom of the fucking barrel property. Number 1, it has to be at the bottom of the list. Number 2, it has to be actively disliked. So, for example, if you put a gun to my head and make me rank all 4 Toy Story movies, 3, 1, 2, 4. On a different day, I would probably rank them differently. But I do not actively dislike any of the movies. So whichever one would be at the bottom of the list, for me, would not qualify as the bottom of the fucking barrel movie. And number 3, and arguably the most important, it has to be so bad, so reviled by me personally, or by Clay personally, that I don't think I can see a movie worse than this in this marathon, in this go. If there was not a movie... There is a bottom of the fucking barrel in this. I talked about it when I talked about that movie. But there doesn't have to be. But in this, there is. Moving up, an F tier movie. At least for me personally. It is a movie that I just actively loathe. I don't want to watch it. It actively annoys me. Excuse me. It either actively annoys me or just actively angers me. But it's not just that it didn't click. I just hate it. A D to me, it just didn't click. There might still be some things in it that I kind of like or think are interesting that it didn't work for me. A C tier movie is just, it's mid. It's There's some good, there's some bad, there's some funny, there's some unfunny, and it all just kind of mixes into, it's fine, I have no interest in it again. For me, a B tier movie is something I really respect. I probably respect it more than I like it. It could be because of its story, it could be because of its animation, but there's enough things holding it back for me to genuinely love it. An A tier movie is just, man, I had a really good time. I really enjoyed it. I would be more than happy to watch it again, and maybe even something that I feel like I love. An S tier movie, these are the contenders. I can make a genuine argument that this is my favorite movie in the marathon. Maybe because of a specific character, maybe because I think the animation is just that good, like whatever it is, this has a case for wearing the crown. And the double S, this is the movie that is wearing the crown. Clay, what do the tiers mean to you?
I feel like they're essentially the same, at least for things like bottom of the barrel, double S, stuff like that. I feel like my biggest difference is, for me, for a movie to be an S tier movie and therefore an double S movie, it has to be a movie that I find essentially no fault in. It's like, okay, for example, an A tier movie. It's good. I mean, it's fantastic. It has a lot of really good elements in it, but it might have like 1 or 2 things that are holding it back. For me, I feel like, for example, The Lion King. Now, I love The Lion King. I grew up with that movie. Like, that was my Disney movie growing up. I wore the tape out on that thing. But having rewatched it, while it is, for the most part, just as spectacular and just as amazing as I remember, its second act does hold it back. It is weaker overall, and that prevents it from being, an S tier movie, from being a perfect movie, as opposed to something like Beauty and the Beast. Like, I find pretty much nothing wrong with Beauty and the Beast. If there's like one or two things, they're so minor that it's not even worth bringing up. Mm-hmm. I feel like that is my major difference there.
Speaking of which, at some point, we do need to do one of these for Disney.
I thought we did do that.
We never did. Oh. We never did a giant tier list for Disney. We'll probably have to watch Strange World before we do it, so we'll have the complete... We don't even know if it's that bad. We haven't seen it ourselves. For all we know... Look, Boss Baby 2 had terrible reviews, and we actually enjoyed it. Spoiler alert, but if you've seen my video on it, I liked Boss Baby 2 a lot. But I guess getting into the actual thing then, Clay, would you like to start with Woody Allen's Antz? Just such a weird thing to say.
So DreamWorks' first film, which came out on October 2nd, 1998, which makes me feel very old because I grew up watching this movie, which I probably shouldn't have, given that it is essentially a Woody Allen movie in ant form. I don't know. But for DreamWorks' first movie, it's definitely an interesting project. I don't feel like when it came out that there were really animated films like that. Just this weird... It's like it's advertised as kind of a kid's movie, but it also has this...
It's super crass.
It's super crass. It has this adult edge to it. Like, it's not even one of those things where it's like, oh, like the movie like tells a joke that, you know, like kids will find funny because it's something goofy and adults will get the deeper meaning of it and be like, oh, I see what you did there. No. This has got like violence and cursing and like sexual innuendos and just... It's a Woody Allen movie. And I think it's okay. I think what it is essentially a bunch of Disney animators got together and said, screw the mouse. We're going to make our own shit. And you can feel the venom in this movie. Not just because Woody Allen is part of it and he is kind of that kind of person, but it's like you can feel it in just all the little things they do, just all these little take-thats at Disney.
The fact that it came out like right around the same time as A Bug's Life.
Yeah. But I think it's an okay movie. It is a relatively solid first step. But what do you think?
This was... So, real quick, I just want a follow-up question. You said this is a movie you grew up watching. So does that mean, like, you saw it, like, once or twice as a kid? Or, like, you actually watched it several times?
I would say I watched it, like, a handful of times.
Okay. I've seen this movie twice in my life. When I first saw it, like, 2.5 decades ago when it came out. And 4 months ago when we started this marathon. And while I was rewatching it, I remembered so much from this movie. I remembered the way these people looked. I remember how ugly it was. I remembered the two...
It is disgusting.
I don't remember if they were wasps, if they were bees, but like the married couple.
They were wasps.
And I remembered the woman getting killed. It was, in my head, I remembered it being far more violent. Like, I specifically... Because I do remember the part with the shoe. I thought she had been stepped on by the shoe, and then she had been turned to like this yellow goop. That lived in my head rent-free for years, and that's not actually how it happened. So I thought the movie was uglier than it was. But I remembered the termites. I remembered the Sylvester Stallone ants, very specifically dual-wielding pickaxes and beating the shit out of a wall. I remember that. And the part I remembered the most is a quote. It is a single line of dialogue. Damn.
Good.
Damn good. Lived in my head rent-free for 25 years.
You would say that a lot.
And as an actual movie, I agree. I think it's fine. I don't love it. I don't hate it. Like, I think as a movie, to me, it's kind of a C-tier-ish movie. Maybe a little higher if I'm in a better mood. But the fact that I remembered so much of this movie for about 25 years... And like you said, this felt like a new kind of animated movie with just how crass it was, with just how much of an edge it had. It really kind of sets the standard for what you expect of DreamWorks. Now, I still think Shrek is when you think of DreamWorks, Shrek is the first movie that comes to mind. But I think Antz still does a pretty good job of setting the stage. And as their first movie, as their first foray, I kind of want to give it a B tier for that, just for the respect of it. If it wasn't so memorable to me after all those years, I still would have said, nah, I think it's a C movie. But it was, crazy how much of this movie I remembered, despite watching it once and not even liking it. It has my respect for that. So for me, I will advocate for a B tier.
I would say that it has enough unique elements and just that kind of interesting, the weird shit that they were going with. I think that elevates it from just a C tier to a B tier, so I would agree. So B. So next up, releasing in December 18th, 1998, was The Prince of Egypt. I started first, so you go.
Okay. This, out of every movie in the marathon, is the one that feels the most like a Disney movie.
It definitely feels the least like a DreamWorks movie.
It's one of very few that are traditionally animated. I think there's only 4. This, Sinbad, Spirit, and El Dorado, right?
And if you count Joseph.
And then Joseph, but of the theatrical ones, it's only 4.
Yeah, because everything after that is 3D animation.
Everything after that is 3D, and then Sinbad wasn't a musical. Spirit's not a musical. El Dorado is a musical, and it's also got Elton John, so there's kind of Lion King Disney-ish too. But even with the way it's written, and just I remember watching it as a kid and thinking, yeah, it kind of had that edge. So it still feels like a DreamWorks movie. It's almost like this weird hybrid.
Yeah.
This doesn't. It's a musical. It takes a very traditionally well-known story and makes an animated movie out of it. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It has... I don't know if I want to just, cement that Ramses is my favorite villain in the DreamWorks Marathon, because we also have characters like Lord Shen, or pretty much any of them from The Last Wish, but Death specifically. But Ramses, he is an S-tier villain. He might be my double S in just terms of the villain. My favorite scene in the movie is when Moses comes back. Ramses is just happy to see his brother, but he's like, Moses, what's this shit you're doing? All right, we can play your games. Steve Martin Short, have a song. After the song, he's like, all right, come on, Moses, meet me in the back, let's talk. I haven't seen you in 40 years. I don't remember what that time skip is. It's something like that. He's like, I haven't seen you in a long time, but I know you. You're not really here to save the Hebrews. This is something. What's going on? And then Moses tells him what's going on. I mean everything I say. I am a changed man. I've experienced a lot in my time out there. And I know who I am. And I see what you're doing to my people. If you are going to be their slave master, then I can no longer be your brother. And he puts the ring down that Ramses gave him. And Ramses picks it up and looks at it, and then you just see all the emotions. Just still that nostalgia, he's so happy to see his brother. The heartbreak of knowing that this relationship will be fractured forever. That moment of lingering regret over what he's about to do. Then he closes his eyes, internalizes it, and then they open with just this fire. And he says, no, all right, we're going to make it worse for them because of you. And when they ask why, we'll let them know it was because of Moses. It was the God of the Hebrews that did this. You did this. I will not be the weak link. That is my favorite scene in the movie of a lot of really good scenes in the movies. Movies, it's plural. One movie, it's singular. I like the songs quite a bit. I think this, the Believe song won the Oscar that year for Best Song.
Yeah, I think it did.
It's not my favorite song in the movie. That first song, Deliver Us, is epic. I love it. And then there's the Plague song, which is just... It just gives me chills. And I remember as a kid watching that scene with the Angel of Death and and then you would see the kids fall and die. That shit that stuck and lived in my head rent-free. This, to me, is a movie. I have no problems with this. I can make an argument for this being my favorite movie. It's an easy S. Clay, you're up.
I also easily agree. It is an easy S. Like, holy shit.
Emphasis on the holy.
Yeah. No, it is... I think I told you when we were watching it, it felt like if Antz was them getting all their venom out, the Prince of Egypt was them showing that we aren't just a bunch of assholes. We are genuinely talented individuals. We know what we're doing. Because for me, the Prince of Egypt, honestly, goes toe-to-toe with the Renaissance movies. Like the Disney Renaissance movies. And...
I would put it above Pocahontas.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a high bar.
It's really good.
But it shows just such this genuine talent, and more than that, passion. I often tell Josh, like, I can feel when there's passion in something, when they're not just doing it for a paycheck, or even just because it's a thing they want to do. It's like, you can tell the people who worked on this loved doing this. And you can feel it in all the little details, all the little moments, the songs, the orchestra. Who did the music for this? The composer was it was Hans Zimmer.
I was gonna say, like, is it probably Hans Zimmer?
Hans Zimmer did the songs, and Steven Schwartz did the Hans Zimmer did the score, and Steven Schwartz did the songs. And I love the songs in this movie. I don't think Believe should have been the Oscar nomination. I think Deliver Us or The Plagues were the better songs. But I mean, If You Believe is still a fantastic song. I love the characters because that's the thing. It's like what you were saying about Ramses. What makes Ramses such a great villain in this is the fact that I feel like this is one of the only, if not the only time where they actually made Moses and Ramses brothers. Because compare it to the other really famous Moses movie, The Ten Commandments, where it's like they were brothers, but Ramses hated Moses. There might have been some begrudging respect there, but he had no problem throwing his ass under the bus. And he gloated. Now, and Yul Brynner's Ramses is a fantastic villain for pretty much the opposite reason of just being this scumbag that you love to hate, not helped by the fact that Yul Brynner is just a naturally very charismatic actor. But here it's like you really see the tragedy of the Exodus, not just the suffering of the Hebrews, but the fact that in order for these people to be saved, these brothers have to have their lives essentially destroyed. You know, because, I mean, if you think about it, like, okay, I mean, obviously Ramses, like, his kingdom is destroyed, he loses his child, you know, he's alone, you know, like, there's that. But if you really think about it, it's really sad for Moses, too, because, okay, so Moses was the Prince of Egypt, then found out that he was a Hebrew, and in his guilt and anger, he kills a man, and he runs away. But he goes and he finds a new life. He marries. He has children. You know, he's like 80 in the Bible when the Exodus starts happening. You know, like, he is a man who found happiness. And he kind of has to throw that away too. And has to destroy his old family. And I mean, what happens after the actual Exodus, like all the stuff that all the trials and tribulations that the Hebrews have in the desert.
The movie literally ends with him getting the Ten Commandments, and it feels like this triumphant moment. I'm like, oh no, it ain't.
I know where this is going. Oh, maybe it was the second time. I don't know. But it's like all of the crap he had to deal with afterwards, and you know, he lost a lot of his family, and it's like there is that kind of great tragedy there. And yeah, like the Prince of Egypt really homes in on that. That these, like, yes, they are biblical figures, and they may or may not have even existed. You know, they may be entirely fictional, you know. But in this story, they wrote them as people and not as, like, epic fantasy heroes. Because it's like, I mean, I love Charlton Heston in The Ten Commandments. You know, he has this great presence and charisma, but he feels more like a character than a person. But yeah, Prince of Egypt is an easy S tier. So next,
The Road to El Dorado.
The Road to El Dorado, released on March 31st, 2000. Oh, shit. So this is just a fun movie. It's not like a perfect movie or a great movie, but it is a entertaining romp, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's kind of like the Super Mario Brothers movie, which we just saw like a few days ago. It's like, is it a particularly deep or emotional movie? No, it's the Mario movie. What it's supposed to be is fun. It's supposed to be a fun, entertaining romp, a popcorn flick, and I think that's exactly what it did, you know. But going back to El Dorado, it's like, yeah, like this is just a fun little story. I saw a meme on the internet that basically said the road to El Dorado is what happens when the rogue and the bard go on an adventure in D&D. And that's...
that they roll nothing but 1s and 20s.
And they roll nothing but 1s and 20s, and that's a pretty apt... that is a pretty apt... In fact, I think when we were watching it, we were doing...
Yeah, I was like, that's a 20,
like,
that's a 1.
That's a 1. It's fun. It's not particularly, like, deep or interesting, although it does have like those occasional moments where it's like, you know, when the chief kind of subtly hints that, oh, he knows that they're full of shit, but he's doing it because he knows it's what will make his people happy. And it's like, I love those little touches that they don't feel the need to really explain to their audience, because they're like, if you're paying attention, you'll figure that out. I always like it when they do stuff like that. I thought the movie was decently funny. I think the performance by the two main characters, which I'm trying to remember who the actors were.
I know Kenneth Branagh is Miguel. I don't remember.
It's Kevin Kline and Kenneth Branagh. And yeah, they just have this fantastic chemistry with each other in the movie. And yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I like it. I'd probably give it like a B, maybe an A, because I feel like it's entertaining enough, but it's not like this elevated, like, masterpiece, you know? Which, again, that's not really a complaint. That's not what it's trying to be. It's just trying to be a fun time, and it is. But what do you think?
So, I don't know where, but somewhere in my massive collection of stuff scattered around different houses from moving around a lot, I have the soundtrack to this movie.
Huh.
I love the soundtrack to this movie, but I also love Elton John. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I was probably going to love it anyways. This movie makes me so happy. This is a movie I grew up watching. I've seen it, I don't know how many times. I remember when I was a kid, and I'm like, yo, they said hell. This movie's cool. Oh, like, they said crap. This movie's so cool. And I mean, that was kind of the thing about DreamWorks, which is weird because when Antz did it, I was like, oh, what is this? I think it's because of just how nasty the 3D looked.
It is pretty gross.
But here, looking at this, like, beautifully animated, Disney-looking movie and them saying shit like that, I was like, oh, this is amazing. Now, I agree, you know, is it particularly deep? Are these the most interesting characters or story? No. But it's a fucking good time. I just have the biggest grin on my face, like when they're doing the ball game, and then like they can't do anything, so they have to start cheating. I think that part's hilarious. When they start having their fight in front of the Khan, which is a genuine argument between them, but they're also using it to distract him, to punch him in the face. The part in the beginning of the movie with their fake sword fight. Let your sword do the talking. I will. It will be loquacious to a fault. You fight like my sister. I fought your sister. That's a compliment. Like, I love that scene.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
You gave me loaded dice.
There is a line in this movie. It's one of those that lives in my head rent-free. I don't know if it's something I frequently quote out loud, but I quote in my head all the fucking time, especially if I'm looking for something. The line is, so the context, it's when they're They've been captured by Cortez for stowing away on a ship, which also is a line that lives in my head rent-free, that you will be flogged. And by God, you'll be flogged some more. But, like, so they're in the brig, they're trying to come up with the plan, and they decide, okay, what we need is a pry bar, so we could just, like, pry the grate off and escape from the ship. So Miguel, using an apple as bait, tries to bribe the horse, which very much sounds like some D&D shit. Like, all right, roll on persuasion. That's a 20. So,
and I can imagine, I can see the DM just putting his hands in his face, going, "You seduced the horse, okay."
So it's like, yeah, he bribes the horse with an apple. Like, okay, now you have to get us a pry bar. So the horse instead just gives them the keys. So definitely gave them something better. But Tulio, who is just like, this plan is inane and stupid. As soon as the keys drop, he just kind of looks at it for a second. Well, it's not a pry bar. That lives in my head rent free. I
just the sheer
love it.
pettiness.
The pettiness is lovely. To me, this is an A-tier movie. Like, I can't make an argument for it being my favorite, but it's not just like, yeah, I respect it. Like, I love it. I can rewatch this movie pretty much any day of the week and have a great time.
Alright. So then next would be Chicken Run, which came out in June 23rd, 2000. They had 3 movies come out. Well, okay, Joseph King of Dreams came out in 2000, but we did not watch that, so it's not here. But
yes.
But Chicken Run.
Chicken Run, I really don't have a whole lot to say about Chicken Run. This one for me is pretty short. I like it. I don't love it, but I sure as hell respect it. There are so many moments of just the stop motion that look so good. There's definitely, quite a few jokes I remember landing. There was the one chicken who just never had, I think her name was Babs, who had no idea what was going on. I don't want to be a pie. I don't like gravy. And I think, like, at one point, like, one of the chickens is dead or something. Like, where is she? Is she on holiday? It was so consistently, like, this character was so consistently funny to me. It looked great. The antagonist, I don't remember her name. It was, like, Mr. and Mrs. Beatty or something? Tweety. That's it, because, of course, it had something to do with birds. Mrs. Tweety's design. There's just something so, like, evil, wicked stepmother about the way she looks, and I love it. Like, there's so much charm in an Aardman movie, what I think only really comes out in the stop motion, which, we'll put a pin in that.
We'll get to
that.
But
when you have that look, it's just so pleasant. It's just so British, and as someone who grew up watching and loving Keeping Up Appearances, I love British humor. It generally just hits me in the right spot. For me, it's definitely a B-tier movie, but what do you think?
I mean, you gotta love a good prison escape movie. But, yeah, it is... Stop motion always gets my respect because, like, to me, that is possibly the most difficult style of animation. Because it's not like a computer where you can tween or you can do all these little tricks to kind of make the process go smoother, or even hand-drawn animation where it's like, yeah, it takes a long time, but, you know, like, there are ways to kind of make it go faster. You know, live action's really easy. You just have to get good actors. I mean, it's not easy. This is in relative terms. But or 2D like computer animation like Flash or whatever. But then you have stop motion where it's like literally every frame you have to slowly manipulate these figures or these like models made out of clay and slowly get it to work. And like I think the thing that makes it so incredible to me is the environmental effects. It's like, I don't know how they did rain.
The rain looks so good.
Like, the rain looks way too good, and it's like, oh my god, they had to animate every droplet in addition to whatever was going on with the main characters in that scene, and it's like, holy shit. No wonder people don't do stop-motion animation. It's expensive as hell. It takes forever. You know, Aardman are kind of the only ones who are keeping it going. You know, like they got Shaun the Sheep, Wallace and Gromit. But stop motion animation movies are always just a treat, just for the visual spectacle alone. I think the story's pretty good. It is kind of the typical liar reveal kind of thing that I kind of don't care for. But other than that, it's entertaining. I did like the villains. But yeah, it's just a entertaining, good time. You said it was A?
For me, I have it as a B tier movie.
I would agree. I feel like while the animation is really good, it does kind of have some problems with its storyline and its characters. And there are times where the jokes don't quite work. They don't quite stick the landing. So I think a B tier is pretty fair.
Pun intended?
Moving on.
Oh, I'll take that as a no. The pun was not intended.
So,
Shrek, the floor is yours.
Coming out on May 18th, 2001. Holy shit, do I feel old. I used to watch this movie all the time as a kid. And by all the time, I don't mean like Antz, I watched it a few times. I mean no, I watched Shrek a lot.
I think I saw it in theaters.
Really?
When I was a wee lad.
Actually, I think I saw it too. When I was I would have been 6 or 7. I think I was 7 at that point when it came out. And
actually, I think it was the first DreamWorks movie I saw in theaters.
Makes sense. I feel like it's okay, the movies we've gotten so far, it's okay, we've got Antz. That's a pretty good first step. But then you've got Prince of Egypt, El Dorado, Chicken Run. It's they didn't quite feel like DreamWorks. They didn't quite have that DreamWorks style or identity, especially Prince of Egypt, which just feels like a Disney movie. Shrek for me is the DreamWorks movie. I mean, obviously it's one of their most, if not their most popular work. It is a movie and its sequel, which we'll get to, is beloved by not just regular people but internet culture. There's so many memes surrounding Shrek.
Freaking Shrek memes give me life, man.
Somebody once told me the world was gonna roll me. Yeah.
I still associate that song heavily with Digimon, because it's the second track on the Digimon the movie soundtrack.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? But it's just a good movie. It has a unique premise. It has very well written characters. The humor is spot on. And it does that thing where it's there's plenty of humor for the kids, a ton of the fart poop jokes and Shrek being just a mean old git.
Stay off of the grass, shine your shoes, wipe your face.
See, I never got that joke until I was an adult.
Really?
I never did. No.
I think even as a kid, I was oh, I get it.
I was just looking at the "It's a Small World After All" parody, but yeah, there's a lot of jokes that'll fly over kids' heads, and the adults will think it's hilarious. But there's still plenty of stuff for kids too. But yeah, it's a unique premise. It's got great characters, and it is funny as hell. It is so funny. Speaking of adult jokes that flew over kids' heads, Lord Farquaad.
Did not get that till this year or last year. I genuinely didn't.
I did not get it until this year. And it was just oh, that's what they did. And apparently it was based off of a Disney exec too. And it's
really funny.
Yeah. It's oh, that's amazing. But yeah, the voice talents are all great. It has a lot of good stuff. Some of the jokes are a little dated. They had a whole Matrix reference, and yeah, Matrix is just kind of a dated reference. But I mean, Matrix had just come out, so that was fine back then. It's not entirely timeless, but it's still such an incredible movie. It is easily an S tier.
To this day, I have seen this movie so many times, Clay. I could not tell you what the hell Robin Hood is saying in his song. Most of it, I just cannot understand what he's saying, and I think it makes it that much funnier. I don't know what is going on. I just know he's trying to hurt Shrek and he gets his ass beat. I know that ogres are like onions. Parfaits might be the most wonderful thing on the whole damn planet. I don't want to just start quoting the movie, but I could. I love it.
Well, I have to save my ass.
I don't know how many times I've watched Shrek, but I know that it has been consistently loved every time. There are some movies that I've seen, or like shows or whatever, that get a little worse every time I see them because, like, oh, okay, like now that the initial hype has gone down, I'm starting to see the flaws and the cracks. There's other things that get better every time because I'm able to understand them a lot better and what they're going for, or in like an older age, they kind of hit me a little bit better. Shrek hits me the same way every time. It hits me right in the funny bone because this shit makes me laugh. This shit makes me howl. I'm just happy whenever I watch Shrek. I love these characters. I love the voice acting. The voice acting is fantastic. I've always loved the message too. That, like, yeah, you know, it feels like a very simple, kind of cliche message of, you know, it's not outside that matters, it's inside that counts. But I've always really loved the way they did it. It wasn't that, yes, she stayed the beautiful princess at the end. Like, no. She stayed what she was for the person that she wanted. And I always kind of loved it, like, but I don't understand. I'm supposed to be beautiful. But you are beautiful. It's beautiful shit, man. It really is. Like, I just think it's a good movie. It's an S-tier movie for me. It really is. Like, I love everything about this movie, and I love it so much, and it's been, like, such a cornerstone for me. Not to say, like, oh yeah, Shrek has influenced my life and all this kind of shit, but it's so nostalgic. And it's like, yeah, it's almost kind of grandfathered into S-tier, but it's also so damn good, it can stand there on its own anyways.
Next is Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron, released May 24th, 2002. According to this Wikipedia article, it was based on an idea by Jeffrey Katzenberg. Good for him, I guess.
So, do I start?
Yeah.
This movie is a D for Damon. It is a D for Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
I don't like this movie. I have seen this movie a lot. I watched it a lot as a kid. And I didn't love it as a kid either. It was...
Why'd you keep watching it?
I don't know. It was on. It was on. I had it. I think I liked it, but I didn't love it. I think it's kind of boring. It's really slow. But I want to say this. It really comes down to the narration, though. If you took out the narration, because the narration feels so condescending, and he doesn't really emote much. I feel like what he's going for is a more kind of subdued, more kind of like subtle performance,
like
I suppose.
Morgan Freeman narrating about penguins
yeah,
or something.
but Morgan Freeman has the voice of Butter, so it's wonderful and it makes everything better. Not to say that Matt Damon has like a terrible voice, but it's not the kind of voice that you're like, man, I could just listen to this for hours, like reading me the phone book. It's like you see something going on, I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of interesting, I'm starting to get invested. So I'm going to tell you the exact thing that you saw, and I'm going to spell out every possible detail so you, stupid audience member, know exactly what's going on. Oh, now I'm bored again. Like, you just actively sucked the fun out of the movie.
It was like there was one scene where it's like they started like throwing ropes at him, and like the narration's like, they were throwing ropes at me and binding me, and I did not like that. And I'm like, I can tell, because the horse emotes more than you.
Yeah, I had a hair on my tongue out of nowhere. Movie looks beautiful. The animation is great, and I think that's the problem. The horse is so emotive that you don't need the narration to say what's going on and what he's thinking. I've said this to you before. You agreed. You might have actually been the one to say it first. I don't remember. And I know I've talked about it on the channel. If there is a cut of this movie, like a fan edit or like a DVD feature, that is, here is the movie without the narration, I would try it out at some point, and I bet it would at least be a B-tier movie. Yeah. I would like it a whole lot more.
And it would have gained respect points too for doing something so unique with an animated movie. Yeah, I don't know if that's a good transition to me.
Yeah, go for it. I really don't have much else to say. I guess the only other thing is the Bryan Adams soundtrack, which is, It's basically the Phil Collins soundtrack from Tarzan or
but
Brother
if a guy sounded like this,
like it's
the whole time,
I'm singing exactly what is happening right now.
Yeah.
But with Phil Collins, I don't mind it as much because I really, really like Phil Collins. And I'm not like that with Bryan Adams. I don't dislike him. I don't dislike his music. I like Heaven. I like Summer of '69. But they're not like, I love this dude so... I think it comes down to the narration. It's the narration is doing it and the songs are doing it. If it was just the songs, like the few that there are, I think it would have been fine. But it's both. And it just feels like this movie...
is talking down.
And it bothers me.
Yeah, because it's like...
Florence yours.
Yeah, I fucking hate this movie. This was the first bad movie of the list, because I mean, I'm sure you've noticed, we got a lot of S's, we got an A, we got 2 B tier movies. This is the first bad movie, and yeah, as Josh said, it is because they don't shut the fuck up and let the scene play out, and it feels so condescending. It's like the movie is afraid to let the children think. They have to have someone telling the children, oh, this is what's going on in the scene. This is, the song is going, this is how you should feel about this movie. And even as a kid, I found it annoying. I hated this movie as a kid. Especially because my niece would come over and she'd love this movie and she'd watch it all the freaking time. And now it was like, okay, now I understand what my parents feel every time I put on The Lion King. They're like, they're so sick of it. But The Lion King has the excuse of being a fantastic movie. This doesn't.
Not an S.
Not an S, but still. I mean, when I was a kid, I thought it was an S. But the movie is holding itself back. It's like, do I think if you remove the narration, would it be an amazing movie? Not necessarily. But it would definitely bump it up quite a bit. For me, it's an F tier movie. So I'm just gonna put it right here.
Okay. Like I will say, to me, it is a D tier movie. I do not actively, even though I was like, yeah, this movie I find annoying and boring. To me, it does not quite rise, or I guess sink to the level of an F. But ultimately, you are the one who has computer control, and like this is not one I'm really gonna fight you over that hard.
I feel like we're not gonna be that different when it comes to this tier list.
I really don't think so. But one thing I want to say before we move off of Spirit, this is a really minor thing, but the scene where they first introduced the the Native American, I don't remember what his name is, but I actually don't remember if they ever really give him.
I think he's just like the boy or something.
Yeah, or it's like the Lakota or whatever. But I remember the Matt Damon narration says they called him Little Creek, and he seemed different from the rest. I always heard a P. So it was, they called him Little Creep. And it just made me laugh really hard every time. Oh, you little one-eyed cretin. First of all, it's Creep. You're going to threaten me to it properly.
Oh my god.
But anyways, next movie. I'm sitting a little away from the computer, so I can't tell what it is. Oh, okay. Every time I just had the lead, so I think this one's yours.
Yeah, okay. Every time I hear the word Sinbad, I think of the Popeye sketch where, like, Bluto is Sinbad, and he has that song, like, oh, I'm Sinbad the sailor. But this is a bit of a different... Well, I guess it's technically the same Sinbad. But I'm not super familiar with Sinbad. I know there was, like, a series of... I think there was, like, a series of movies.
Is he in the 1001 Nights?
I don't know. I think he was. You're gonna look that up.
You go and say your piece. I am going to check that.
Yeah, so Sinbad came out in July 2nd, 2003, and I like it. Okay, I think this is kind of on the same, like, I don't want to say it's the same tier as El Dorado. I think it's a little lower than that, but it's the same essential concept of El Dorado. It's just, this is just a fun adventure for the kids.
1001 Nights.
Okay. This is just a fun adventure for kids. You've got Sinbad, he's this cool swashbuckling hero who's he's an anti-hero, he's very selfish, bit of a misogynist, a bit of a creep.
A little creep.
A little creep. he's going on a quest, and I do like how the movie doesn't shy away from the fact that he is an opportunistic bastard. It's like, so the plot of the movie is like, while he's visiting, like, essentially a friend who's like the prince of this kingdom, like their most valuable sacred object, like the Book of Mormon or whatever, gets captured by the goddess Eris, and Sinbad is framed for it. And the prince offers his life in exchange if Sinbad can go and retrieve the book within a certain amount of time. If Sinbad can't, then the prince dies in his place. And originally, Sinbad's just like, well, sweet, I get out of execution free, bye guys. And then he kind of has to be coerced into actually going and getting the book. Which I feel like for any other character, it would make them way too unlikable. They're like, wow, your best friend just sacrificed his life for you and you're just moving on. Like, what a prick.
So you know that meme of the dude just like giving the peace sign and he disappears? It's literally Sinbad.
But Sinbad kind of makes it work just because, one, he is very likable, and you also get them... It doesn't take a lot to convince him to go get it. And yeah, he is just a fun and entertaining personality. The rest of his crew was fine. The female lead, I think she was like voiced by Cameron Diaz. I want to say it was Cameron Diaz. And she was okay. But I think the star of the show is the villain Eris. Mostly because of her animation. Like, if you've ever seen this movie, you know what I'm talking about, where she is animated. She's basically like this, like, woman that's, like, made of smoke. Like, the way she...
Catherine Zeta-Jones is the love interest. I thought she voiced Eris, but that was Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah. Being voiced by Michelle Pfeiffer definitely helps, but, like, she's like this wisp of smoke that, like, smoothly transitions between all these different shapes and scenes. And she's so entertaining. And I love her motivation for doing this is just to fuck around. Like, she is doing this purely for the lulz. And yeah, you gotta appreciate a villain who's just doing it for fun. I think it's a relatively okay movie. It's paced a little... I remember its pacing being a little off. And I feel like the villain is the strongest part of the movie. And everyone else is... They're fine. They're okay. Personally, I would put it probably like... I would want to say like a B tier. Like, it barely gets into B territory. Barely B. But what do you think, Josh?
So, first off, your main characters are pirates. I've got a soft spot for that. Like, that's just a lot of fun. He's voiced by Brad Pitt. I tend to really like Brad Pitt. Like, he has this very natural, relaxing charisma that I have a lot of fun with. Eris is what makes the movie, though. Like you said, the way she's designed, the way she moves, the fact that she just doesn't fucking care, it's just for sport, I think it's a lot of fun. Her voice is sexy as hell. The way she moves is sexy as hell. My favorite scene in the entire movie is how she frames Sinbad. She makes a skin puppet of the dude and then possesses the skin puppet and then, starts robbing shit. So it's not even like some weird, like, oh, okay, like there's... If these guys were intelligent, they would realize it wasn't Sinbad. Like, no. She did this really well. And also there are parts of the adventure I remember being really fun, like when they have to deal with the sirens. That was really cool. There's like the giant ice bird
right there.
Yeah, and like the ice bird I thought was really cool. There's something I thought of several times throughout the DreamWorks marathon is, so when do I get a Kingdom Hearts-like game that instead of going through Disney, I get to go through DreamWorks? Because some of these movies or these antagonists I think would be really cool. A Sinbad world, I think would be a ton of fun. I think Crude's also, because it's just fucking Monster Hunter. That would be another world that's a lot of fun. But Sinbad itself, I do think it's alright. I remember the actual romance between Sinbad and Marina, it was something close to that. Didn't really work for me as like, okay, I guess we're doing this. Also, man, you are doing your homeboy dirty. But I think it's generally fine, but fun. But B tier is what I have for these are movies I really respect. And the animation on Eris, that makes this a B tier movie alone because it is just that good.
Shrek 2, the big one. It's like, yeah, if Shrek set the tone, like, Shrek 2 was their first, like, humongous hit.
This is one of the greatest climaxes of any movie I've ever seen.
I need a hero.
This movie has one of my favorite antagonists of any DreamWorks movie. I love the fairy godmother. Now, I don't think she's not as compelling as Ramses. It's in the way that, like, Shrek likes to mess with fairy tales. The idea of, yeah, the fairy godmother is actually this conniving bitch who is trying to manipulate everything. The movie never outright says she is the one who cursed Fiona so she could get her to marry her son. But it doesn't have to say that, because you can kind of figure it out. You're like, that's so horrible. Oh, I love this. This is so brilliant. They don't even have dental. Like, there's so many little lines or jokes that, again, just kind of live in my head rent-free. Like, that just entire section of, oh, hey, man, we're with the Union. The Union? Yeah, we represent all fairy tale creatures, both, evil and benign. And then how he just moves the microphone away so the fairy godmother doesn't hear anymore. I think that is hilarious. For 5 minutes, could you not be yourself?
For 5 minutes.
Like, I think that was like the trailer to the movie played that scene like all the time. So that one really lives in my head rent free. Just King John Cleese is a lot of fun. The whole dinner scene is hilarious. It's what introduced Puss. And that first fight with Shrek is really funny. Did I miss? No, you got him.
Isn't it a little early to be talking about kids? I know, I just started eating.
And this comes with the medieval meal.
My diet is ruined.
Like,
I hope you're
that
happy.
scene is so funny. I love
So
that all the
consistently
villains
funny.
have this evil bar. I love that Larry King voices the evil stepsister.
That's great.
It's impeccable. Oh, that cover of Holding Out for a Hero is so good. I will just unironically listen to it out of nowhere. It's an absolute banger. It's an S tier movie. It's very, I know my thing is that if I put something in S, it means I have an argument for it to be the double S. This has a very strong case of being the double S, because I think it's just a better Shrek 1. I think the story is better because it just feels a little more kind of personal because it's all about the family. I think it's funnier. I think it's bigger. I think the climax is better. Like I said, like with Puss, it adds another new character who's really fun. I like the villain in the movie more, and I still like Farquaad quite a bit. It's just, we nailed it the first time, and then we just made everything better. I don't really have anything else to say, but just chef's kiss.
Honestly, me either. Like, I can't really say anything more about Shrek 2 that you haven't brought up, because it's like, it is a perfect movie. It is so funny. Pretty much every joke hits. It is so well paced. The characters are great. The acting is great. The animation still holds up really well. Easy S tier. Well, Josh.
You know, actually, one other thing I do want to say about Shrek 2 is I like how in the first movie, Fiona had to change for Shrek by the end of the movie. And while they still revert to where they were at the start of Shrek 2, Shrek was 100% willing to make that change for her. And it's just things like that, like, I love these two. I love their relationship, and that they are willing to make changes. They are willing to make sacrifices to make things work because they love each other that much.
Because that's a good relationship.
And also, that opening song, I love it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, we've had a good amount of S's. We had an A movie. We had a few B movies. We had one stinker. But Josh, are you ready for the shit? Are you ready for a lot of mid-tier, low-tier garbage? Because it's time for Shark Tale.
Yep, go ahead. You can start. You know what I'm going to say about Shark Tale.
Shark Tale came out in 2004, and it was composed by Hans Zimmer. You poor bastard.
This came out the same year that Fate came out. 2004.
Holy shit. How do you go from Shrek 2 to Shark Tale? How does that happen? How does this... It's like they burnt out all... Like they used up all of their creativity, all their passion. And I know these movies came out the same year, so they obviously had two different teams working on it. But, man, they put the shit tier team on Shark Tale, because this is a shit tier movie. It is... hideous. It is like Shrek 2, like I was saying earlier, Shrek 2 still holds up. It still looks like a really good animated movie, even like almost 20 years later. Shark Tale looked like shit when it came out.
It kind of did.
It's so, like, I think a big part of that is the art design. The fact that they try to make these fishes kind of look like they're actors, so you have the Will Smith fish looking nasty
I'm just
as
seeing
shit.
him in my mind's eye, and it's so gross.
Just, it's a shitty looking movie, and it has such an unlikable protagonist. It's like, okay, like one of the first things this guy does, it's like, okay, it's like, oh, he's this down on his luck loser, you know, but and he's in a lot of trouble because he is in debt, but his best friend, you know, is the girl next door. She's like, okay, I will help you with your debt. So here is this, like, priceless pearl, this heirloom from my family. Use this to pay off your debt so you can get square, so you can really make something of yourself. And the next day, the motherfucker goes and bets the money on a horse race. Or, I'm sorry, a seahorse race. And it's like, that instantly made me not give a shit about him for the rest of the movie, because I'm like, you are just an unlikable piece of shit. Mm-hmm. You're not like, say...
Sinbad?
No. I was gonna go with Aladdin, because Aladdin is also, you know, like, he's the street rat. He's the loser. You know, he's never gonna get anywhere in life. But the difference between... I don't even remember. I'm just calling
Oscar?
him... I don't give a fuck. He's the Will Smith fish. He's the Will Smith fish. The difference between Aladdin and the Will Smith fish is, number one, Aladdin's actually likable. Number two, despite being a street rat, he does have talents. He has things about him that makes his dream of wanting to be bigger justified. Will Smith fish never shows any sort of talent or initiative or even clever thinking, because I feel like a lot of the planning is done by other characters. Mm-hmm. He is not just a societal loser, he is just a loser. He is not a character that I want to root for. He's not a character I want to see get better or improve. I'm like, no, you're exactly where you're supposed to be, you gutter trash. Stay the fuck where you're supposed to be. You know? Gutter trash. The other characters are just there. Honestly, the character I feel the most for is like the girl that gave him the pearl. Because I'm like, lady, he is so below your league. Like you can do so much better than this guy. Come on. I don't care that he's voiced by Will Smith. That's not an excuse. Come on. You can do better. And I guess, like, the big thing, I mean, okay, the main character's unlikable. That's a problem.
No problem.
The movie's ugly as sin.
Also
another problem. Strike 3, it's not fucking funny. It's a comedy. It's not funny. I think I laughed maybe twice. And it was like, I think it was like the first 5 minutes where it was just this deluge of, like, fish puns. And they were almost all of them fucking dead in the water. Pun intended. They were dead. gone.
The guy running the sushi stand.
The guy running
really
the sushi
funny.
stand was the one of the two funny jokes in the movie. I can't remember what the other one is. I know there was like one other one that I actually thought was pretty clever. But it's like, basically, if you took Cars, where it's like, oh, it's Cars in human situations. But you see, Cars was actually kind of clever and actually did some funny things with it. Shark Tale's like, it's the fishes, but they're in human situations. Guess what, motherfucker? SpongeBob's been doing it for like 5 years and they did it funnier than you. Man, this movie's got me a little more steam than I remember. It was like, I'm a little bit more irritated.
You're pretty boiled over there.
Pretty boiled. Yeah, I'm nearly done. Stick a temperature probe in me, see if I'm about ready. But, yeah, this movie's fucking shit. It is F tier. Now, it's not bottom of the fucking barrel. We'll get to that. But for me, easy F tier.
Now, before I start, you did not say anything about the actual eponymous sharks. Is there anything you would like to say about Robert De Niro Shark or Jack Black Shark before I state my piece on this masterpiece?
Dude, I don't give a fuck. Like, okay, Robert De Niro was kind of phoning it in on this one. It just sounded like, it's just Robert De Niro, like, talking. Like, he's doing a mafia thing. But he's not funny.
Okay.
And the Jack Black Shark is like, I didn't even think it was Jack Black for most of the movie. I'm like, wait, it was Jack Black? Because he was doing, like, this really effeminate voice that made it really not sound like him. And it's like, that's another problem. Not that Jack Black was doing an effeminate voice, but you have Jack Black in your movie, and he doesn't sing. Go fuck yourself. Come on.
Wait, did he sing in the Kung Fu Panda movies? I don't remember.
I think he did the cover for Kung Fu Fighting, I think.
Yeah, but that's like in the credits. It's not in the movie proper.
I kind of count it. They got him to at least do that. But anyways. But it's like, come on. But I know you think of this very differently.
I do. So, when I was sober, I feel like I have to say that I was sober at the time, which, to also clarify, I normally am. But this sounds like something you would think of when you are high as a kite, as it were, when you were in the purple haze. But I watched the movie. I think I was mostly playing Puzzle League at the time, and I was like, yeah, this is fucking awful. Like, it looks ugly. Basically everything Clay said. It looks ugly. It's not funny. The main character, he's incredibly shallow. He is a person who wants to be famous, not because he actually has a dream. It's not like he's a great dancer or an artist or anything like that. It's just, I want to be famous because I want to be famous. And it's not like Aladdin, where he's actually really down on his luck. It's like, no, you're lazy. You don't go to work. You often go to work late. You're in all this debt. Why? Is it because you had to borrow a bunch of money? Because, like, you had to pay for, like, to keep your grandpa's, like, a heart on life support or anything? Like, no, it's gambling debts because you're trying to make you're trying to get rich quick. And it not only is not working, it is making your situation worse. And take the shovel, Oscar. You're just digging yourself deeper. I did not like it. I was like, yeah, this is an easy F-tier movie. Then I woke up the next morning, thinking I was having some kind of breakfast. I was like, I'm going to eat, then I'm going to go in my car, and I'm going to just record my thoughts on Shark Tale, the shit show that it is. And then something clicked. Maybe there was something magic in that bowl of cereal or whatever I had. I don't know.
Snapped is more like
But I realized this movie is unintentionally genius. And it's really weird to say that unironically, because this all feels like a setup to a joke, or to, again, some just marijuana-fueled rumbling. Shark Tale feels like a critique of modern clout-chasing internet culture.
Which is weird, because this came out like 20 years ago.
And I'll get to that. But it feels like, yes, this is what these kinds of people are like. They want to get rich. They want to get famous. And please do not misunderstand me. There are people on social media who have fucking talent. There are people who are, like, really funny. There are people who are fantastic artists or fantastic singers, or when they actually like stream a game, are really good at playing games. Or like when they give a video essay, they have a lot of really interesting points to say. Or again, like they're just actually really funny. There is something there to like a talent to cultivate and harness that makes you root for this person. Like, you know that feeling when you watch someone on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, whatever, and you're like, you only have this many subscribers, you deserve more because you are that good. This does not feel like a movie critiquing those kinds of people. It is critiquing people. It's the people that you find on YouTube, Twitter, whatever, and you go, how the fuck does this person have like X million subscribers? How? They are not funny. They don't feel like they add anything of substance. This is annoying. They come off as shallow, maybe even predatory, depending on the kind of content they have and who they market it to. That's who Oscar is. He does not add anything of value to society. He does not add anything of value to even his immediate sphere of influence. He literally makes Angie's life worse by being around him because she has to cover for him. She like feels guilt. It's not that he does not guilt trip her, but she's like, I want to help you, so I'm going to get rid of this priceless family heirloom for you. What I will say about Oscar, though, as much as I shit on him, and he deserves it, he does care about his friends. Because it's not just like he's like, oh, I'm super famous now, I don't care about you at all. He still is nice to her.
It's like the
he
first
still
thing
invites her to... Yeah, like the first thing he does, he's like, I got you your pearl back with interest. He's like, I got you like a big necklace for it. Because I always take care of my friends.
It's like, that is like one of his few redeeming qualities.
And the fact that the movie just feels like such an apt critique on that kind of culture, on just like clout chasing, I love that. The fact that the movie is so ugly to look at almost feels intentional. Like, yeah, like you guys have done 3D movies that have looked good. And then there's this. Because this kind of behavior is disgusting. It's
like,
gross.
I feel like this is their
unpleasant to look at.
I feel like this is their ugliest movie.
I think it is.
Like, I think it's not even like even like their shittier movies, even movies that go below it on the tier list look good. So I was like, I remember you talking to me about this, and I'm like, I don't want to believe that it's actually genius. Like, I don't want to. It's like, it feels like if this movie was made like 5 years ago or even a few years ago, you'd be like, okay, you can see it. But this was made back before all that clout chasing was a thing. But I think you didn't say, when you were talking to me about this a few months ago, you didn't say that it was about internet clout chasers. It was celebrity culture as a whole and how shallow it was. Which, you know, back in 2004, that was still topical. Is just the shallowness of celebrity culture and how a lot of people are getting famous for doing nothing, like the Kardashians or whatever. And it's like, I feel like if you look at it from that lens, it is actually really clever. It also doesn't change the fact that it's a pain in the ass to watch.
But I will also say this. The other thing that this movie does is the relationship between the sharks. Kind of like what you said, Jack Black doing a very effeminate voice. Lenny is very clearly gay. Or is a metaphor for being gay. In this, he is a shark who is a vegetarian, so he's going after something that sharks aren't supposed to do, and how his dad doesn't understand him for that, doesn't accept him for that, and how he actually kind of gets bullied for it. And Oscar, of all people, 1000% does not care and accepts him. And there's a scene where, you know, during the big climax where Oscar is what's the name of Robert De Niro's shark? I actually don't, it's Don something. But regardless, he talks to the Don and he's like, hey man, your son is happy being who he is. Why can't you be happy for him? And the fact that, when did this come out? 2004?
Yeah. This
is a movie that feels very, very, like, accepting of gay culture and, like, being LGBTQ in 2004.
Yeah, that just was not a thing back then.
It just was not. So it's like, on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, this movie looks ugly. It's not funny. The main character does have some redeemable qualities, but is just unlikable, and I hate it. But also, it was a pro-gay movie in '04, and, like, surprisingly very sweet about it, and also kind of subtle, like, not super in your face, like, super trying to guilt trip you. I like that. I respect that. This movie has a really interesting theme, whether it's intentional or not. And I really like that and really respect that. So, I'm like, it's kind of a B-tier movie for that, but I think when I look at the things I respect about it, but the movie I ultimately have to watch, they kind of balance each other out, and for me, I think I would give it a C, because of the things I genuinely see in this movie that I don't think anyone else does.
That feels so weird putting it in C tier, man. I see your argument, but it was just like, it's just such an unpleasant experience to watch.
It is. I won't lie. That's why I can't give it a B tier.
Yeah.
Because I respect it enough, but weird. It's weird.
So
who's next? Is that Madagascar?
Yeah. Madagascar.
Okay, Madagascar. This is a C tier movie.
Yeah, this one's an easy C tier.
This is easy. I will talk about it. I will say why. First off, I don't like the way the movie looks. I think the actual animation, like their movement, it's very rubbery, and I like that. Like, I feel like there's a lot of energy. But the movie has this weird plasticky sheen to it that just bothers me, and I don't know if Over the Hedge is next or if it's like 2 movies later. But Over the Hedge looks like that, too. I think there's a couple movies in a row with that weird plasticky look, and I hate it. The characters of Gloria does nothing for me. Melman does nothing for me. The first half of the movie, Marty is a Disney princess. He's like, I want adventure in that great wide somewhere. And it's fine. It's nothing unique. And then the second half of the movie, he does nothing for me because he's not important. Alex, the first half of the movie, he's fine. Doesn't really do it for me. In the second half, he then becomes the main character of the series.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how that works out.
It's really weird. And his conflict is, I am a predator. I am a carnivore. And I've always been fed meat. So I've never looked at my friends as food. Now that I don't have it, Daddy's hungry. And him struggling with his predatorial instincts and being their friend. And that's actually really interesting.
Yeah, it really is.
Like, I feel like if that was what the entire movie was about, I feel like it would probably work better. I would have enjoyed it more. But I think the first half is just kind of fine. In terms of the humor, every scene with the lemurs sucks. I don't like the lemurs in this movie. I don't find them funny. I don't think King Julian is funny in this movie. He is unfunny. To me, there is a difference. Not funny is the joke just didn't click. I get what you're going for. So I was like, on a theoretical level, this joke works. It just didn't hit me. Unfunny is, no, I hated this.
You are actively draining my enjoyment.
Yes. To me, that is King Julian in this. I have to specifically say in this movie because he's funny in 3. And I'm almost mad that he's funny in 3 because they finally did something good with him.
It took him 3 movies to get him right.
But I think he is aggressively unfunny. The Wonderful World segment is funny. That is some, like, peak mean-spirited DreamWorks humor.
Oh, wait, which one was that again?
It's the scene when you're just, like, a bunch of animals are just getting mauled in the wild.
That shit. That's actually really funny.
That scene is great. The penguins are hysterical. They are the best part of the movie. I love them. But that's really it.
I remember that one scene that lives in my head rent free.
Oh, sugar, honey, iced tea.
Yeah, when they get off the island and Marty and Alex are reuniting, they're running toward each other. It's all in slow motion. They're like, Alex, Marty, Alex, Marty, and like slowly, like Alex is getting more and more furious, and like Marty's realizing, and he's like, oh, sugar, honey, iced tea, and I'm like, I find that really funny.
That's a really good joke.
But I guess, okay. I agree. I think the animation...
I have to stand up for a second.
The animation doesn't quite work. I think it's because there are a lot of times where the characters are just kind of sitting and talking to each other and not really using that kind of like rubber band animation to its best extent. And even when it is using it, it's not quite... I think it's because while it does have the stretchiness, it never really had the impact. Like, for the slapstick. It's like, because, okay, like, look at Tom and Jerry. When Tom and Jerry gets hit with a frying pan, he doesn't just go like, oh. He either freaking vibrates as he's moving back, or he gets literally flattened into, like, a circle. You know, and they don't really do things like that here. But I do agree. I find the main characters to be mostly uninteresting, with the exception of Alex in the second half of the movie. The penguins are really funny. I didn't find the monkeys super funny in this movie, but I do think they get a lot funnier in the next few movies.
They really do.
I despise the lemurs, especially King Julian. I never found him funny in any of the movies. I'm just going to say that.
Oh, you didn't find him funny in 3?
And I think it mainly has to do with his voice. One, I don't find Sacha Baron Cohen that funny himself, which... Okay, like, that's more of his writing than to do with this, but it's like, okay, the voice he uses and the writing makes him so annoying. I hate listening to that voice. It drives me up the wall. Yeah, the penguins are funny. God damn it. It's mid as hell. It really is. It also ruined the song I Like to Move It forever for me, because I will never unhear this version. Yeah, it's mid as hell. Speaking of mid as hell, we have Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. I'm kidding. I like this movie. It's stop motion, which is always a treat. It's Wallace and Gromit, which is always a treat. And yeah, it basically feels like an extended Wallace and Gromit episode. You know, it's like a feature length. It's got your boy Wallace. It's got your dog Gromit. I'm just crackers for cheese. As you do a little arm wave thing. I think the plot, you know, like the plot is fine. I feel like when it comes to Wallace and Gromit, the plot is not the most important thing. It is just seeing what kind of insane shit they do with the stop motion. You know, it's like, I feel like with Wallace and Gromit, it's kind of the same thing as, like, watching an anime, like a mech anime, where it's like they have all these, like, intricate, like, details and parts, and it's clear, like, the animator loves himself some machines, like, some engineering, and it's like, that's kind of how it is with Wallace and Gromit. You want to see just kind of the insane machinery that they come up with, and how, like, they use stop motion on everything. I love Ralph Fiennes as the villain, just this really pompous British aristocrat, like, oh yes, yeah, I'm snooty, you know. And I think overall, like, the story was fine. It's pretty light. The characters are pretty light, but they're enjoyable. It has that kind of that crass British humor. Okay, we're not like Monty Python
like
crass or Antz, but it's still, like, it's got some funny moments in it. I feel like if it was a regular 3D animated movie, it would be a C tier, just because it would be mid. But because it is that stop motion, it is that impressive stop motion, it does bump it up to a B movie. But what do you think?
Like, that's basically everything I would have said. Yeah, I think I don't want to just say it's fine, because that sounds like I'm just like, it's mid as fuck, who cares? Like, I had a good time. I'm really in no rush to watch it again. But if I did, I would enjoy it. Like I've said, I like that British humor. I love stop motion. Just the scene of the Wallace rabbit, like, I love that. And then I get khakis for kids.
You do like quoting that.
I quote that so much. Almost every one of these movies has just had something that lives in my head rent free. Sometimes it's just Matt Damon being boring. Other times it's Will Smith's face in Shark Tale. But yeah, like, I think it's a B tier movie. I respect it a lot. Who's that best song? Is that Over the Hedge?
Over the Hedge.
Okay, so Over the Hedge, I like it. I had a lot of fun with it.
It's just a fun movie.
Like, I thought it was funny. I thought it was entertaining. I loved the like exterminator looks like one of my friends from law school. Like, I literally took a picture of the character and just sent him a text, and I was like, yo, I didn't know you were in a DreamWorks movie, dude. Like, I thought, like, that alone made me laugh really hard. The insane traps he was coming up with. Like, the woman who just wanted to get rid of the pests. And as people who have squirrels living in our houses that we can't stand, I sympathize with her. You know, I sympathize with the animals, you know, trying to, you know, get food, and Bruce Willis not trying to get mauled by a bear. But, like, I get the woman, too, but I think her over-the-topness is also really funny.
Yeah.
Do I think this movie is great? No, I can't say that, but I can say it's a movie that gave me a really good time.
It was entertaining.
It does have that plasticky sheen look to it that I just don't like, though.
I think it definitely has a lot less of the rubber bandy kind of animation, unless we're talking about the squirrel.
The Steve Carell squirrel.
Steve Carell squirrel, which, that was another thing that was really entertaining in the movie. I think the voice actors all did a really good job. But yeah, it's entertaining. It is an entertaining kids movie. And that's not really a derogatory sentence. I feel like sometimes like saying, oh, it's just a kids movie is kind of derogatory, but it was entertaining. And that's what it set out to be. It set out to be entertaining with a little bit of heart, you know, just a little bit to kind of elevate it. But I would put it as a B-tier movie as well.
I think that's fair. Like, I'm not exactly sure which tier I want it in. So, like, I'll concede that B kind of feels right.
And DreamWorks, more like Breamworks, am I right? We got a lot of B movies. Well, until we get to this one. But, anyway.
What was that? Was that Home?
A B movie.
Oh.
No. Oh, we'll get to that. We're encroaching on that territory here in a second.
We're at almost the halfway point. So I think Shrek. We're almost at Shrek the Third, and Shrek 4 is, I think, halfway.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit. But Flushed Away, I think this is the last Aardman movie for DreamWorks, and it's the only movie that they made that wasn't stop motion. It is just 3D animated. And so remember what I was saying earlier about how, like, okay, Wallace and Gromit and the Curse of the Were-Rabbit, like, if it was like a 3D animated movie, it would be an easy C tier because it just doesn't have a lot other than that spectacle. That's Flushed Away. Probably even worse than that because it doesn't have the same charm as Wallace and Gromit. So it's 3D animated. It still has that Aardman like style, like the way like the characters are designed. But it no longer has that stop-motion animation that made Wallace and Gromit and Chicken Run such a joy to watch. So all you have left at that point is like the characters in the story, which, for the most part, are fine. I feel like the main character is just, he's okay. The main girl is just okay. I feel like the big standout of the movie is the villain, who is like this really big fat frog voiced by Sir Ian McKellen. And I can always tell in these kind of movies where like an actor is just having the time of their life, because it's usually because like they're given a chance to play a role that they just don't play. Because when you think of Sir Ian McKellen, you usually think of like Gandalf, you know, or Magneto, like these almost Shakespearean characters, you know, and with this charismatic presence with his booming, soothing voice, you know. Here he plays this butt fuck insane like frog, who is just laughing his ass off at a lot of different scenes and just acting completely loopy, and you can just tell that he's having a lot of fun because he doesn't play characters like this. You know, he is kind of typecasted as that very like that elderly commanding presence. Here he is just this funny kids villain, and he is consistently one of the funnier parts of the movie, not just because of his not just because of the performance, but because of like the situations he's in. It's like, no, he is actually really funny. But I think the rest of the movie is just not that great, honestly. For me, For me, it's a see-through movie, but it could possibly be moved down to our D tier. But what do you think of it?
I think Sir Ian McKellen saying, "Le frog," is wonderful. I think the meme of his character going, "Huzzah! A man of quality!"
Yeah.
is great.
I forgot about that meme.
That's all I can say about this movie that I like.
Uh-oh.
I don't like the way it looks because it's an from what I understand, this was when the fire happened at Aardman Studios. And I believe that is why this movie could not be the traditional stop motion and had to just be 3D instead. And just every time I looked at it, like, this looks wrong. I am seeing I am seeing Aardman character designs, but with DreamWorks animation in this era where everything has that weird plasticky look. Maybe if it had the style of like Puss in Boots 2 or like a Trolls movie, it could have worked even if it wasn't stop motion. But it's this specific era of DreamWorks where things just don't look right to me. Made it it's so unpleasant to look at. The main character to me was boring as sin. The main girl was slightly more interesting, but I didn't really get into her story. The whole thing starts because just some asshole shows up, throws them in the toilet, and then, I mean, like, their interaction being was kind of funny, but...
It's like, wow, what a dick.
It's, like, he wasn't even that interesting of an antagonist. He's not even really an antagonist. He just gets the plot started, and that's it. The romance between the two leads, I didn't really buy. His decision of, I do want to stay here in the sewers, I didn't really buy it. I was just, again, aside from Sir Ian McKellen, and then actually Le Frog himself, which it wasn't in it for super long, but like, aside from the frog and toad, I was not invested in what I was watching. This is a D-tier movie to me. Like, this to me was, when I saw it, I thought, this is the worst one I have seen. I did not think it was F-tier quality. Like, this was certainly not a bottom of the fucking barrel kind of bad movie by any stretch. But I thought, this is the weakest so far.
Oh, God, you know what I forgot? I forgot the little minion slug fuckers. No, it's a D-tier movie. Like, okay, they have, like, these little slugs they have, like, the minion voices, and they, like, will sing songs like, lonely, I am so lonely.
I remember that now.
And it's like, oh, wait, no, I remember that shit. No, it's a D-tier movie. No, you don't get to be in C-tier after that. No. You might have been the inspiration for the Minions. Shame on you.
I haven't seen those movies. I cannot judge. From the trailers I've seen, I don't think they look that funny. But I haven't seen them myself. I could watch them and think they were great.
Speaking of not funny, it's time for Shrek the Third.
I'll fight you on that. I thought this movie was funny. Now, I don't think it's nearly as funny as the first one, or the second one, or some of the other great DreamWorks comedies that we have seen.
Or the fourth movie.
But I think it's funnier than the fourth movie. I don't think
the fourth movie's honestly... Well, we'll get to the fourth movie, but...
It's like, I think this movie is actually quite funny. I think it is quite enjoyable. I remember when I was like, this I think is like an A-tier movie, and I don't think I would still go that high. But... I just had a good time. So, like, I remember the part where they're at the school was this weirdness of, is this really funny or really unfunny? Because it's this weird microcosm of both at the same time, which is kind of impressive to me. Like, I remember the Eric Idle as Merlin not thinking he was funny. Then there's the parts where Shrek is trying to talk hip to Justin Timberlake Arthur, and I'm just giggling to myself the entire time because of how weird and cringy and awkward it is. But you know that's on purpose, and it's working. You've got the scene in the beginning of the movie when Charming's like, I'll go to my dressing room, and he literally walks into an alley outside because he's so unrespected and disrespected. I was cracking up at that.
I didn't know you could be unrespected and disrespected at the same time.
Again, it's one of those weird void microcosms, but when you pull it off, you get Prince Charming in this movie. He's so funny. Like, I think Charming, to me, works better as a number 2 rather than a main antagonist.
He is kind of weak.
But I think his story makes a lot of sense of, I lost my happy ending, and I want it back. Other villains, you've been screwed by fairy tales. why don't we try to fix this? That's a really interesting idea, and I like that. I love that when you go to see all the villains, who do you see? You've got, like, the Wicked Witch of the West. You've got Captain Hook. You've got the fucking demon trees. Little Red Riding Hood is there. They don't really do much with her, but she's there amongst the villains. That is hilarious to me. And I sincerely hope in Shrek 5 they do something with Little Red, because this is arguably the most iconic fairy tale character of all time. It's kind of surprising she's not a major character in a Shrek movie, and it's really fucking weird that Rumpelstiltskin is in this movie.
And it's completely different.
And it's not the Rumple from 4.
Yeah.
It's
weird.
It bothers me because lore inconsistency, but like, does it bother me that much? No, if I'm being honest. Okay, the scene with Rapunzel when Gingy reveals that she's actually bald is pretty funny. I don't know if Charming is actually dead. Like, the thing falls on him, but it happened in the rehearsal too. It kind of looks like the window falls on him, so maybe he's alive. Maybe he shows up in Shrek 5. I don't know. I'm trying to remember some other parts that I remember being really funny. Like, I feel like there was something else with Gingy or Pinocchio, but I'm not sure. The part when Shrek is captured and he's just roasting Charming in front of the entire kingdom is amazing.
I do feel like Shrek is at his strongest in this movie. Like, in terms of his personal, like, jokes, I feel like he has...
like, not taking anyone's shit.
Or it's like he was like, oh, you know, we could beat him over the head with a rock. I'm joking.
Wow.
But wow, though.
Oh, the scene where he has the nightmare of, like, having kids, like, the kids, and then, like, Shrek and, or, like, Donkey and Puss turn into his kids when he wakes up. That was hilarious and terrifying at the same time. That was great.
Was horrifying.
I think my biggest problems in the movie are Fiona essentially does nothing, which makes me sad because Fiona is great. And the actual kind of plot of, like, Shrek just really doesn't want to be king that badly, so he's just desperately trying to get someone else to do his job. It's fine, it's not terrible, but it's not nearly as good as the first movie of, I want my swamp, and I'm gonna do whatever I can to get it. Which you'll really sympathize with. Or the second movie of, I want to make my wife happy. How do I do that? Which is really sympathetic. This is just, I'm just sick of this shit.
I just want to go home.
And, like, that's not unsympathetic. It just doesn't super click with me as much as the first two.
And I feel like that's a good way for me to say, it's like, it didn't click with me. It's like, I definitely found that there were some funny moments in it, but it's like, man, compared to Shrek 1 and 2, it is so much weaker. It is the quality I had not come to expect for Shrek, and it was kind of a disappointment with that. I felt like the Arthur character was just kind of there. He wasn't really funny or well performed. I just think it's a mid movie. I think it's a C tier, maybe a B tier. I don't know. Like, what do you think?
To me, I would put it in B. I enjoyed it enough to give it a B. I think there's enough genuinely funny things and funny ideas.
Speaking of B, it's time for B movie. So, while I have seen quite a few of these movies before, like growing up, I have never seen B movie. I didn't even know what the movie was about. This was a 100% blind playthrough of the B movie, and I have to admit, it wasn't what I was expecting at all.
I was so looking forward to seeing your reaction to Pooh getting tranked.
This movie was made by people who were, like, on something, man. Like, they took some of that spiked honey. They took some spiked honey from Cocaine Bear, and
I was already a blood-sucking parasite. All I needed was the briefcase.
This movie's so weird, man. I get the feeling that, like, I don't do drugs or anything. I get the feeling that if I, like, smoked weed and watched this movie, I might be traumatized for life. Like, every time I would see a bee, I would just, like, be like, oh, fuck. Oh, no, please, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Jerry Seinfeld. I'm sorry. this is such... honestly, I think it's a... Here's the thing. I can't criticize this movie. I also can't praise this movie either. It is such this weird fucking experience that I'm saying it's a B movie, one for the pun, and two for the, well, it's all, because I'm losing my mind. The one word I can use to describe B movie is bizarre. So for me, it's a B movie. It's a B tier movie. What do you think, Josh?
This movie is so funny, Clay. So we watched this and Shrek the Third as a double feature, expecting both to be expecting Shrek Third to be awful and B movie to be this weird, memey, bizarre experience. Shrek the Third to me is not awful. I enjoyed it quite a bit. B movie is a weird, bizarre experience, but I was laughing so hard and so consistently. Patrick Warburton's character being so threatened over a bee is insanely funny to me.
And his fears were founded.
And just the scene where he's just like talking to his girlfriend and he just says, "But it's yogurt night," made me laugh so hard. The part at the end, "This bee is living my life," was really funny to me. I like how there's a part really early in the movie where Matthew Broderick B and Barry Benson, also known as Jerry Seinfeld B, are just trying to pick up girls by acting tough. I don't remember exactly what they call them, but essentially like the squad that actually goes out and does the pollination. And those guys see him like acting tough and like, "Hey, you guys think you're really tough? Why don't you actually come with us to one of our missions?" And Barry's like, "Bet, I'll fucking do it." And as soon as he shows up, those guys go from like kind of being bullies to like, "Dude, you actually showed up. You get all of our respect. Okay, this is what you gotta do. Stick with us. It's gonna be a good time." And like, I loved that. I loved how just kind of good-natured it was. John Goodman is so funny in this movie.
My heaving buttocks.
He is this over-the-top lawyer with the southernest drawl you have ever heard. He sounds like he has gargled molasses for 10 years straight for this one role.
Oh my god.
He fucking does sound like Ignatius. It's wonderful. It is so fucking funny. Seeing Winnie the Pooh get tricked. I love Winnie the Pooh. This is not like a, "Yes, I needed that. It deserves higher than that."
But at the meme though. But the meme, Josh.
No.
The
You
meme.
put it in A because I would put it in S. I think this movie is so funny, so creative, and so insane. It is an S tier movie for me. I loved it. I loved every deranged second of it. And the Sheryl Crow cover of "Here Comes the Sun" at the end of the movie is such a great cover of my favorite Beatles song that I just loved it. But if you're a B and I'm an S, I will settle for an A. I think that's fine. I am in love with the insanity
I was
of
mostly
B
putting
movie.
it in B movie. To be fair, I was putting in B tier for the meme, but I feel like A works. Okay, everyone was kung fu fighting. Oh my god, we've been doing this for a while. Everybody was kung fu fighting. Whoo! Kung Fu Panda's pretty fucking good.
So I get to start.
You get to start.
I did not like this movie the first time I saw it. I didn't think it was all that funny. I thought a lot of just the way they treated Poe was too mean. And I think as someone who grew up and was bullied a lot, that's why it wasn't like the, "Oh yeah, this is just kind of funny." I'm like, no, this is fucked up. I don't like this. The fight with Poe and Tai Lung didn't ever sit right with me. I was like, wait. You mean this guy is so badass, he can fight the Five by himself and win? This guy is so badass, he can fight Shifu by himself and win. But he can't beat Poe because Poe's the main character? Like, Poe's not that strong.
What shonen anime shit is this?
I was like, this is bullshit. This movie is terrible. The next time I watched it,
tables.
I liked it more. I still thought the end was bullshit, but I found it more funny. I think some of the philosophy expressed in the movie kind of clicked with me a little bit more. It essentially went from an F tier movie to about a C plus, B minus, somewhere around there. And I think I'd seen the movie one more time in between that and my most recent viewing, but I don't super remember what I thought. I liked it a little more than the second time. So I believe for the marathon, it was the 4th time I had seen Kung Fu Panda. And this was the time that it clicked. I think this movie is really fucking funny. I think the fight scenes that are there are really cool and really well choreographed. Master Oogway is one of my favorite characters in the DreamWorks marathon. I love the wisdom. I love how low-key he is about it. How he's just joking around with Shifu, having a good time, but still giving important lessons. There are no accidents. Even if it seems like it. Heck, I know you don't believe that the panda's gonna do anything. But he will. Like, you have to trust me. I don't remember the exact line he says. It's like, one often meets his destiny on the road he takes to avoid it. I love that, and he's 100% right. Tai Lung only escaped because that feather showed up, and that feather was only there because Shifu made sure it was there. And fuck, the scene where Tai Lung escapes the prison is so fucking cool. I've always loved that scene. Poe hits me really fucking hard, man. Like I said, as someone who was bullied a lot growing up, as someone who had a lot of issues, self-confidence, self-esteem, self-worth, it still kind of does. Seeing that reflected in that character, and just like his growth throughout the movie, of like, no, like, I know I'm not good enough to be here. I know that I am just this fat loser. But I was picked. So that's gotta mean there's something in me that's worth it. And if Master Oogway sees something worthy in me, and if Master Shifu is going to teach me, then maybe they're right. That there is something. And I am gonna do everything I can to cultivate that. To become the dragon warrior that I can't see in myself, that apparently they can see clear as day. And there's something like really fucking beautiful about that to me. And getting to the end of the movie, with that climactic fight with Tai Lung, as someone who spent a good chunk of last year getting into fighting games, which I've fallen off from, which sucks because I was really having fun with fighting games, I've come to understand the concept of a hard counter. And that you can be the most, broken ass character in a game, but there is something out there that balances you. I watch a lot of False Swipe Gaming. Shout out to that channel. But the fucking hour-long Landorus video came out on Easter, and it was wonderful. And if that has taught me anything, you can be the most busted, broken-ass Pokemon. But there is something that exists to counter you. You can be a worthless-ass piece of shit like Parasect and have a genuine niche in Ubers. Because the game is weird. And that is what Poe is. He is the genuine counter to Tai Lung. It does not mean, oh, well, he's the main character, so he's super strong out of nowhere. It does not mean, well, Tai Lung had to get nerfed for this to work. He has a pressure point style fighting system that doesn't work because he can't hit Poe's pressure points. I buy that. Shifu was trained a certain way. The 5 were trained a certain way. And Tai Lung was trained that exact same certain way. And he is just kind of better at it than them. Po was trained in a completely different kind of way. So the shit that works on them does not necessarily work on him. Which means Tai Lung also, because of the different fighting styles, has a harder time actually reading what Po is going to do. And it takes that scene when they fight from being complete bullshit to really funny and really satisfying. And the moment when Tai Lung grabs the scroll and he's like, I've got it.
It's nothing.
What? Like, it's nothing. It's blank. I don't get it. And Poe's like, I was the same way, man. I didn't get it. But there is no secret ingredient. There is no secret to eternal power or to being the master of all kung fu. It's just you. This is an S-tier movie. Like I've said,
that's easy.
There's movies where it's like, I can make an argument for it being my favorite. This has a very strong argument for being my favorite. Talk about a redemption arc.
It really is. And yeah, it is. It is just a really well done movie. But the movie has one serious problem. Just
Jack Black doesn't sing?
No. Oh. Jackie Chan gets way too
yeah,
few
they
lines.
really don't do shit with Jackie Chan.
Y'all went and got Jackie Chan to voice a character and you gave him like 2 things to say. It's like, come on. Guys. I mean, okay, I know he's not like a voice actor or anything, but like, I mean...
Who was the Jackie Chan Adventures?
Jackie Chan Adventures, yeah.
Actually, did he voice the Jackie Chan character, or did he just only do the stuff at the end?
Pretty sure he was Jackie Chan.
I'm actually going to check that, because I'm not sure.
Man, that takes me back. That is a show.
Oh, yeah, that was a Saturday morning staple for me.
But yeah, like, easy S-tier movie.
It's on Crunchyroll.
It is?
Apparently it's on Crunchyroll.
Oh, shit. We need to watch that. But anyways, moving on. Madagascar...
Jackie Chan did not voice himself.
Really?
Yeah. There was a voice actor that did that.
Madagascar, Escape to Africa. Oh, hey, look.
Madagascar,
it's another Madagascar movie, because this is an easy C-tier movie. It's so forgettable. I am struggling to remember it. I remember, like, a couple of things. Like, okay, the penguins had a really funny scene with the monkeys that it's like a one big union joke. That was, like, the funniest thing in the movie. The other is the crazy old lady who's like, bad kitty, and she's, like, beating the shit out of people, which follows up into that one segment where they run her ass over, and they're like, is she still alive? And she gets up and glares at them, and they put the car in reverse and run her over again. I was like, okay. It gets, like, 2 really funny lines. Other than that, it is super unmemorable. Once again, the main 4 don't really do anything. Like, okay, like, Marty has kind of an interesting thing where it's like, yeah, like, I'm with all these zebras who are literally exactly like me, down to the fact that they are all played by Chris Rock, and they all say the same thing. They all do the same thing. And he's having this kind of identity crisis where he's convinced his friends don't recognize him. Gloria is, like with other hippos, and, like, you know, like, Moto likes you. It's like,
goodness, girl,
you're huge. It's
you
like,
are rotund.
It was like, but then she realizes, no, she likes the giraffe instead, and the giraffe is convinced he's gonna die in, like, 3 days, and so he offers to sacrifice himself to the volcano, which was engineered by King Julian, who, once again, is not only unfunny in this movie, he is actively antagonistic this time, where it's like, yeah, he's trying to fucking kill Melman for this, like, water, like, the water sacrificing shit. Then you've got Alex with, like, finding his family again, and, you know, having to contend with the Alec Baldwin lion, and it's like, wow, this movie is somehow less memorable than the first, because at least the first is like, okay, this is kind of a unique premise. The second movie, once again, takes these characters who didn't have a lot going for them, and once again spends an entire movie not doing anything really notable with them. Like, Marty gets a little bit of a thing, Alex gets a little bit of a thing, Gloria and Melman
become a thing,
still exist, but at least we have the penguins being funny, the monkeys are really funny in this, the humans are kind of funny, there's like the human camp of like tourists, and it's like they're kind of funny, but it was like, I feel like it's even more mid than the first movie. Somehow it managed to be even more aggressively average. But what did you think?
So first off, I don't remember if I realized this in the first movie or in this movie, but I just remembered it, so I will say it now. I think it was specifically you saying his name as Melman. Melman is voiced by David Schwimmer, who I know predominantly as Ross from Friends. He sounds a lot like Moist Critical. And there was like, I think it was like a line delivery really early in the movie. I was like, wait a second, I know that voice, but I know that's not who voices him. I would love to just see Moist Critical just do all his lines. Like how I said, like there's like, maybe somewhere there exists a version of Spirit without Matt Damon. I want to see the version of the Madagascar movies with him voicing Melman. But regardless, now I got that out of the way. The actual movie itself, I'm going to disagree with you about how unmemorable the movie is, because to me it actually kind of is. Not by a whole lot, but let me rephrase what I'm disagreeing with. It's not that I find the movie super memorable, but I feel like they actually went out of their way to give each member of the main cast something. Alex is still the lead, and he has this, you're not a real lion story thing, which was very boring to me. It's not awful. Like, I've seen this kind of story before, and it's the weird Alec Baldwin lion. What the hell is this? Like, it wasn't bad. It was fine. Marty's story I found fascinating. I've always prided myself on being this really unique guy. There was no one else in the world like me, and my friends can't even tell me apart from the other zebras. Because we look the same, talk the same, act the same, and I am having an existential crisis. Melman had his thing of, I'm a hypochondriac, I think I'm gonna die because stupid misunderstandings, and I'm also seeing the woman I love actively seeing other men, and it is breaking my heart. Gloria has Moto. Goodness, girl.
You're huge.
Moto is my favorite part of it. Okay, no, it's still probably the penguins. But aside from the penguins, yes, the two scenes you cite of them running the lady over and then making sure, and then the union discussions with the monkeys are fucking gold. My other favorite scenes are Moto. But I feel like they specifically tried to give everyone in the main cast something. I think Marty should have been the main one, personally, because I thought his was by far the most interesting. I didn't think Melman was super funny, but I didn't hate it. And like I said, Gloria had Moto, so it was fucking great. I would agree with the placing. I would still say it's a C-tier movie, but it seems, I think I liked it a bit more than you did. But I don't think I liked it enough to bump it up a tier.
Monsters versus aliens.
So speaking of things that live in my head rent-free, Hill Galaxar. The scene where he's giving his motive rant about why he does the things he does, and as he's about to get to the interesting parts, he goes into the machine, which starts cloning him, and then he comes out still talking, and then just keeps going in and out.
So you only get, like, bits and pieces.
So you just get bits and pieces, I think is hysterical.
Other than that, though,
the main character's name is Susan, and I have a character I made named Susan, and she just
infects
shows up.
Everything.
She really does infect everything. So now, anytime I hear the name Susan, which is a perfectly nice name, I just kind of can't take the character seriously, because I just think of my Susan, who I can't take seriously. But I still thought that Susan was very likable. Derek's a piece of shit. Fuck that guy. I thought Bob.
Also, I mean, not only is he a piece of shit, he's a fucking moron. Because literally any person would look at the, like the giant woman and be like, score. I am getting a...
Not necessarily. That's not everyone's fetish, Clay. I mean, if you want to air your fetishes out to the channel, that's perfectly fine. You do you, but not everyone shares those fetishes.
I don't really have that. Like I don't have like a giantess. It's like if someone's like a foot taller than me, like okay, that's pretty cool. But no, it is just like, so you're breaking up with her because she turned into a giant? That's pretty shallow. That's a pretty shallow, shitty thing to do, man. You think it's going to harsh your like your career? Dude, this is like one of the biggest news stories of the day. You'd get a prize for reporting on this. So you're not only a jerk, you're an idiot. But yeah, but I'm sorry.
But Hail Galaxar.
Hail Galaxar.
But yeah, like the missing link voiced by Will Arnett, he's fine. He doesn't really do much for me. I think Bob is pretty funny. I think there were some times where he's kind of annoying, but I thought he was funny. The Stephen Colbert president goes back and forth. I think there's some times where it just doesn't work. And there's other times where they talk about pressing the button. And it's like, you can't do that. He's like, no, I can just push it like right here. They're like, no, stop. And like that actually got some laughs out of me. To me, it is again a very C-tier movie where I don't think it's great by any means. There's not really the kind of, for a B-tier movie, like I said, it's like I respect it. Like there's at least something in here that I'm like, good on you for that. I don't think this movie really has that. I guess maybe Susan, because I found her really likable, but I think overall it's fine. It's enjoyable. But I think I'd probably put it in C, but I could be convinced to put it in a B.
Honestly, I feel like I'm a little bit of the opposite. It's like, I didn't really enjoy this movie. It's like, okay, so what you were saying earlier about the art style for some of those movies, how it bothers you. The art style for this movie bothers the hell out of me.
Really?
Well, because it's like, okay, like looking at it, it's like, okay, you've got this almost anime-esque design for Susan, where it's like she has the big eyes, like the very like cartoonish characteristics, but then you give her like a realistic skin texture, and it's like, okay, don't care for that. I don't care for the really ugly design for these characters, for a lot of these characters. Like the humans look really nasty. Weirdly enough, like the monsters look pretty okay.
Because humans are the real monsters, Clay. This movie's like Shark Tale. They be thinking. I didn't find it to be really funny except for Galaxar. I thought Galaxar was consistently actually really entertaining. Susan is a fine character. I do like her. I do sympathize with her. But I do find it to overall just kind of... It would usually be a C-tier movie, but I find there's also just nothing really keeping it from being a D-tier movie. Like, there's nothing that elevates it from being mid. It's like, it's got maybe like a couple of funny scenes, but I think it is D-tier, honestly. I think it should be at least C.
I don't know.
I don't. To me, it doesn't sink to the level of being D. I thought it was at least entertaining enough to be that high. I will advocate that it should be C.
Okay.
I let you have Spirit and F. I don't think it's an F tier movie.
Speaking of F tier movies, How to Train Your Dragon. Oh no, absolutely not.
Am I first on this one? Did I start with monsters? I'm actually not sure.
You started with monsters.
Okay, so you go first.
So How to Train Your Dragon is one of the pillars of DreamWorks, one of their many franchises, and going into this marathon, I always assumed that How to Train Your Dragon was considered just the best one. Because it was considered like the most consistent,
just to clarify, like, do you mean like the best series or the best movie?
Series.
Okay, gotcha.
Like the consistent, like just very consistent, very well animated, great characters, world building, all that. Like everybody loves it. It's that along with like Kung Fu Panda and Shrek, and it's just like these are like the top tier movies. So for the first movie, it absolutely earns that reputation. I think How to Train Your Dragon is fantastic. It's got great characters, great writing, good pacing. It's beautifully animated. It is just a really nice, heartwarming tale about a boy and his dragon. You know, I think, but I don't think it's an S tier movie personally. I think it is an A tier movie. I think there's one or two things that don't quite work for me. I think like the main thread of the movie just being like this big just asshole dragon, like it's fine. I think it is a great movie. I don't think it's quite S tier though, because for me, like, it is not a perfect movie. But what do you think?
This movie was directed by the two stooges that directed Lilo and Stitch. And you can tell. And I use the word stooge as affectionately as possible, because Lilo and Stitch is one of my favorite movies. To me, it is an S-tier Disney movie. I have it personally ranked second amongst the 60 theatrically animated Disney movies I have seen. This one, I don't think I would rank second amongst the other DreamWorks movies, and I do think Lilo and Stitch is better. But this kind of takes that similar idea of, here is your main character, your teenage to, like, slightly preteen. Actually, now, how old is Lilo? She's, like, maybe 10?
I always thought she was, like, 8.
Maybe. I don't know how old she is. Like, she's definitely not a teenager. But Hiccup is. Hiccup's, like, 14, I think?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. So at least you have your younger protagonist who does not have a great relationship with their guardian of the same gender. With Lilo, it's her older sister who's looking after her after the parents died. For Hiccup, it is his father, who is a single dad because their mom died. And Hiccup, he actually has trouble fitting in with the other kids his age. He's kind of a fuck up. Ends up meeting a creature.
Wow. Lilo was 6.
She's 6?
Yeah.
I did not know that. I definitely thought she was older. I thought she was at least 10. Shit, never mind.
Anyways.
Same voice actress as Chihiro.
Yeah, DeVay Chase.
Anyways, speaking of fantastic movies. Anyways, point. This thing ends up befriending a creature of supernatural origin. One, it's an alien, and this one, it's a dragon. What I love about this movie is that sense of discovery, of learning about Toothless, about learning these are things that dragons like, these are things they don't like really studying it like an animal. The scenes of them trying to figure out how to fly, I love that. The scene where they do fly is fucking beautiful. The soundtrack to this movie was so fucking good. I really, really liked it. What I like about Stoic is the vibe I get from him is that he is trying. He is trying to, again, a lot like Nani, trying to balance my role as a guardian. But also, I guess with Nani, it's my role as a guardian to my sister, but also trying to have my own life as an adult. With Stoic, it's being a dad and being the chief. And sometimes I have to be the dad, but most of the time I have to be the chief. Because kind of the entire village are my children in that way. And my son is a fuck up. And I can't just overlook that. He's gonna take over for me someday. I need to make sure he is ready for it. He definitely goes too harsh when he's like, no, you're no son of mine. Like, you knew where the fucking dragon nest was? Fuck you. And as soon as he says it, you see that look on his face where he knows, I said something I can never take back. I was caught up in my emotions, and I said something I know I shouldn't have. But I said it, and, like, I can apologize to my son, and it's not gonna change the words I said. So I gotta do what I gotta do. And it's, like, really fucked, but I think it's really interesting. Toothless is precious. Toothless is just, like, a perfect mascot character. Like, he's just so derpy, but can still be really threatening. And I like that. Again, he's like Stitch. For me personally, I would argue this is an S tier movie. I just think it's neat. I love it.
Okay. We'll go ahead and put an S tier. Just for you.
I appreciate it.
So we've been talking for like 2.5 hours, and we're only halfway done.
You want to take a break?
I think I want to stop it here and then continue on later.
That's perfectly fine.
All right, so we'll be back later.